back. We are back. This time better for a very long time. There isn't going to be any international break for a very long time. We are going to be here discussing football for a very long time. No distractions, no international break, no nothing. Club football is back and it is properly back for a very, very long time. This is Fiifi-Manfred. I am back also with you here on Fiifi-Manfred. I am consistently glad and grateful for your support and everything I've been doing for the channel. I want to say a big thank you just before we go on for subscribers, for viewers, for those that bring in their comments and then have dissenting views. Albeit they doing it very, very in a way of decorum, with some decorum. I want to say thank you to you in a civil way. I want to say thank you. You guys are beautiful people across the world. In the UK, in the US, in Kenya. I was surprised when I saw that some of our viewers are from Kenya. In Nigeria, my brothers. Omo, thank you. And of course, my people, thank you very much here in Ghana for also listening to me on Fiifi-Manfred. My name is Fiifi-Manfred. If you are new to the channel, thank you very much for choosing me. You can follow me on all socials. It's in there on Twitter, on Facebook, here on YouTube as well. You can do the following and of course, and the subscribing and turning on the notification bell and then choosing all. Apart from that, we can discuss football everywhere. You can reach me everywhere on my mail, which is on my Twitter as well. Thank you very much. Of course, the mail should be if it's business. Thank you very much for choosing me on Fiifi-Manfred on YouTube. Guys, there's big stuff. Mauricio Pochettino and his Chelsea have been chasing down the big boys. Against Liverpool, they did. They found ways to stop Liverpool, essentially. Against Tottenham Hotspur, they found ways to stop Tottenham Hotspur. Against Arsenal, they found a beautiful way with rotations and the pressing and counter pressing to stop Arsenal. Against Man City, it was the biggest of them all, where they found very, very pragmatic, solid, fluid ways to stop Pep Guardiola and the best team arguably in the world now from hurting them. Now, for the very first time, Chelsea are going to play a big boy. I mean, a recent big boy, but they don't need to stop this big boy. They need to control the game. And that's exactly why I'm here. Thank you very much for joining me. If you are here, thank you for choosing me. I am getting back in a second with all the juice. Fiifi-Manfred on YouTube. So, for me, Eddie Howe has been one of my best managers in the English Premier League for a very long time. Especially since his days at Bournemouth and when he did a brilliant job in bringing up that Bournemouth side. One of the things I remember he doing so well was his mid-block ways of playing, and then how he used the directness of playing, and then winning second balls, and then using set pieces as a way of getting his job done. In fact, he is one of the best set piece coaches because his days at Bournemouth were one of the best set piece teams, and at Newcastle as well, his team is the best in terms of creating XGs, the better XGs from set pieces, and that's who he is. He's up there with Thomas Frank's Brentford. And these guys mix it up. Sometimes they want to press. Sometimes they want to sit in a mid-block. Sometimes they want to go in a mid-block. Sometimes they want to be aggressive. Sometimes they want to be very competitive. Sometimes they want to win a second balls. But there is something with Eddie Howe and his Newcastle side, especially when they play at home at the St. James Park. There's something. And I'll go straight to it. It's the intensity. It's the intensity of the atmosphere that they're able to create when they play at the St. James Park. You see, I've said consistently that if you look at how Manchester United press, it's the same way that Newcastle presses. If you look at how they go ahead and do their job. And it's the same way Chelsea even press Manchester City. The same structure, the same, on paper, right? But in football, the biggest thing is about execution. And that's the nuance. That's the little disparity between the game being played tactically on a board and then the game in reality on the field of play. Execution. and I think that is Man United's biggest issue. The ideas are there, but it's the execution of the players and how you're able to generate intensity from players even when they don't have it. So, in the case of Newcastle, now, look at somebody like Miguel Almiron. Look at Anthony Gordon. Look at Bruno Guimaraes. Look at Sandro Tonali, who may not be playing. And then look at Alexander Isak and then Wilson. In fact, for Isak, for Gordon, and then Almiron, these are some of the relentless presses and chases of the ball in the English Premier League. And this isn't just me saying something. This is backed by data. They chase the ball. Everyone on the field of play, especially when they play at stone side. They chase it. They win the second balls. They are aggressive. They come back to defend. They win those balls in there. They are very combative. It is the intensity of the atmosphere in the stadium and the intensity the players are able to generate on the field of play that makes the difference. And I think that's the biggest trump card of Newcastle going into this game. In fact, going into every game. You watch the Arsenal game. And for once, Eddie Howe has been able to create a team where they are not victims anymore. They want to be villains. They like to be villains. And in football, sometimes you have to be a villain. You need to be the aggressor. Because if you go and you are lethargic and you're like, oh, I'm in a small team, you will be beaten. You'll be clobbered. And you don't want to be clobbered. You want to stand up and fight. And Newcastle are doing exactly that. Standing up, putting in a fight, doing a very good job and having plans. Doing it in a structure, proper footballing structure, and being aggressive. That's exactly what they're doing. So it is Chelsea's biggest test yet in playing the big boys. Because if you look at this Newcastle side, they play every time long balls. Almost every time they go with the long. And without the ball, they know how to press Chelsea's build-up shape of the 4-2-4. We'll talk about that on the tactical board. They know how to press and go. When they fail to press in the first line, they go retreat and sit in a 4-5-1 mid-block in central areas. They know how to do that very well. With their intensity, it is almost impossible to play through them. And you need to match their intensity. You need to match their aggression. One of the reasons why PSG failed was that they failed to match their aggression. They failed to match the intensity. Tactically, PSG had been set up in a brilliant way in that 4-2-4 because that's how you play through them. That's how you win. You stretch them. You stretch them on paper. But then it's about the second balls and how they'll push Fabian Schär and all of those boys into wide areas, how they'll be aggressive with Dan Bain and with the second balls, how in the middle of the park, if Tonali is in there, he's winning every ball. Bruno Guimaraes is that guy that has that intensity in him and combativeness to win those balls in the middle of the park. So that's the thing. That's the thing. If you look at the game against Dortmund, they were able to match the intensity. They never really fell off. They pushed them. When they brought the fights, they went in for the fights. There, Marius Wolf and the likes in the middle of the park were very brilliant. Bryant and the likes who don't really go in for such tackles were like that. They had experience of Homos and then Sule at the back. And it tells you how much of a team that they were and how Edin Terzic prepared his team to have that aggression to play in such a game. So you need it. Right? But mind you, Newcastle have had the worst form of injuries under Eddie Howe before the international break. So they've lost a host of players. Tonali is out suspended. In fact, in their last training session for the whole week, they had only just 5 players. You've seen that video where Karen Trippier goes to the fans and tells them about the injury issues in camp. They have a lot of players out on injury. Ishak and then Amiron were injured before the international break. I am hearing they're possibly going to come back into the team and they are good in that regard. They've had some time to recover. Trippier did pull out of the English squad just to be able to come back and prepare for this one. And it is there. You see that there are big issues for them in such a game. But nobody cares. They want to go in and get a job done. So that's essentially Newcastle. We'll talk details of tactics on the tactical board in a minute. But for context of Chelsea, sharp contrast, however. Wesley Fofana has returned from injury. Nkuku looks like he's going to be on the bench. Romeo Lavia is returning fully from injury. Kani Chukwuemeka is coming. And for Fofana, however, this is a player who was ruled out of the season. Wesley Fofana was ruled out of the season. And all of a sudden, Wesley Fofana, everybody's back at Chelsea, and it's in sharp contrast for Wesley Fofana. For one, you look at the kind of player that was ruled out for the whole season, and all of a sudden he gets back onto the grass in less than 6 months, and it tells you the fact that he is way ahead of schedule. I don't think Chelsea will rush him, but he's one player that I know for sure that Mauricio Pochettino loves on the right hand side. He adds space to the team, and they will love to want him there, right? So. Yeah, so in sharp contrast, Chelsea have players back, players that are returning back into the team. Newcastle do not. They have injuries on the other hand, and that is it. Like I said, every game that Chelsea have played against the big boys this season, they have played it in such a way that they chase the big boys. They chase them down. They are the aggressors. They stop them in their tracks. They find ways to stop them. But in this game, they need to be controllers. They need to be controllers. They don't have to be stoppers. They don't have to be chasers. They need to control the game. They need to operate in the game in such a manner that they have total and absolute control. So Arsenal had some technical control of the game they played against Newcastle. They lost it in terms of the physical battles. And Arsenal have a lot of physical specimens in their team, right? So Chelsea also have some physical specimens in its team. And they need to be very, very solid and rock solid in how to deal with these guys. It's going to be very important, very, very important, how they deal with these people in the aggressive point of view, the combative point of view, and how they dictate the pace of the game from that part of the game. The physicality is going to be enormous. It's going to be enormous in there. And they need to make sure that they get this done eventually. So that's it. I'm hearing that I wanted Benoit Bellali-Chile to start. I'm hearing that he's still going to go with the Sarsi, Thiago Silva. If Thiago had gone on to the international break, then definitely Benoit would have come into the team. But then Thiago didn't. He has trained fully. He's in the regimes. Then the question now becomes Marco Correa or Levi Cole. Because of set pieces, I'll go for Levi Cole in there. He has the height. He has the aggression from that area. And the game is going to be like that. So let's get inside into purely tactics. Let's talk about the game. Then let me tell you how the game is going to go. This is Fiifi-Manfred on YouTube. Before we go there, if you've not subscribed, do subscribe to the channel and do turn on your notifications. Do choose all. My name is Fiifi-Manfred. Hi. So yeah, we are finally on the tactical board. Chelsea possibly in the blue, and Newcastle in the red. So there are three separate things. What Chelsea did against the big boys compared to what they have to do against Newcastle United. How Chelsea possibly have to build up against Newcastle United. And then a big age-old question of Chelsea suffering to break down low blocks and how that is going to transpire in a game like this against Newcastle United. So in about 5 minutes, you're able to put that together quickly for you. I don't intend to be too long. So from the Chelsea perspective, it's a 4-2-3-1, right? Like that. And we've seen that James is back on the right-hand side in here. Thiago Silva plays on the left side of centre-back. There's Axel Disasi on the right. On the left side, I said in the context video, in the lead-up to this one, that I want Levi Cole ahead of Marco Correa in here, because Levi Cole offers that physicality, the aggression, and the height in the team ahead of Marco Correa. Then in the middle of the pack here, of course, going to Enzo Fernandez and Moise Caicedo, unless any of them are not fully prepared, given the jet lag and they traveling from South America, and then the tackles that they go into in that side of the world when they're playing the international friendlies. But of course, Conor Gallagher, more of the same. And then Sterling on the right, on the left-hand side, Cole Palmer. Then up top here, there is my man, Nicholas Jackson. Now, I don't think that Jackson may start. I think Armando Broja will start for two reasons. Broja has trained for a very long time with the team. He's fully fit now. Jackson has traveled and whatnot. And I think that this is going to be a game of physicality. Broja's press is very important. His pace to give Shah and Dan Ben up here a lot of worry. Those are going to be very, very important in here. And I think that Broja will be the man to occupy these spaces and give them a hell of a time in the second ball. Try to win them, try to close them down from coming into the middle of the park to come and have some form of control, come and add to the numerical superiority of Newcastle in the middle of the park. Now, so in Chelsea's build-up against Manchester City for one, essentially, it was more like a 4-2-4, right? That is the shape of Chelsea's build-up against Manchester City. More like a 4-2-4 like this. But this is the trick. There were a lot of rotations. Now, on the left-hand side where there is Enzo Fernandez, when Chelsea are beginning to build up the ball like this, and then Robert Sanchez is in between the two, usually with the ball, Axel Disasi, Thiago Silva opens up for them. Now, the rotation starts like this. The rotation immediately starts when Enzo Fernandez drops in here to left back, or the half space between the defensive left back area. Then Marco Correa in 10 moves up the field of play like that for Raheem Sterling to come inverted. So that was the thing. That was how Chelsea built up consistently. Now, the job of Moise Caicedo was to close down, was to block close down runners to attract players to himself in there. So let's say if teams are playing in a 4-3-3 narrow like that. Two of them are on Axel Desasi and Thiago Silva. Now they know that the opening is to either of Thiago's is to Moise Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez. Now Enzo Fernandez does a brilliant job in rotation in there. This is Chelsea's front three, and then there was Nicolas Jackson in here. Once there's usually somebody covering him, but it's the movement, it's the rotation that did a lot of the brilliance for Chelsea. Enzo Fernandez moves in here. He comes to occupy not necessarily like the fullback, the left winger. He doesn't necessarily move into left wing area, but he moves very, very close to the halfway line, and then Sterling comes inverted to come and play inside for them. And that was the thing. That was how Chelsea were able to do a lot of rotations to play out against Manchester City in that regard. Now, you remember that this Chelsea 4-2-4 in progression will transit and come and become at a large part of the first half of the season, it became a 3-1-6, which was too fluid in the structure. The fluidity was too much. Now, it becomes from like this. There are times where Marco Correa will invert, and then you have Regimes keeping the width on the right-hand side in there. So you have usually Regimes keeping the width in here in a 3-2-5. So the base becomes like this, like that in there. Then you have Raheem Sterling, half space, Cole Palmer. You have Nicolas Jackson in there, and then Regimes keeping the width. So it becomes a 3-2-5. Usually you have somebody like Marco Correa being part of the defensive three. Then Chelsea have Regimes holding the width in here, over there for them. Then you have on the half space, on the right half space, you have Cole Palmer. Of course, in game state, there are a lot of movement in here. You have Nicolas Jackson, and then you have Conor Gallagher. Usually, sometimes Conor will rotate with Enzo Fernandez depending on who is more ball-sided, Enzo Fernandez or Conor Gallagher in that area. Then you have your winger, usually Raheem Sterling from that area. They also do a lot of rotations, a lot of underlaps and overlaps in here to rotate in game state. And this is how Chelsea are beginning to find a much more fluid shape from the 4-2-4 in progression, moving to a 3-2-5 in there. Now, there is a little bit of a difference when you play against a team like Newcastle United at home. And I did mention about their intensity, but it is even more than that. It is the directness of the team. However, when they play in games like this, especially when they play at the St. James Park, they are very, very, very direct, very, very direct to deal with them. Now, almost every long ball, of course, Chelsea are going to press in a narrow front three like that. With their front three, they are going to press in a narrow front three. Enzo Fernandez will shadow mark and then back it up. But then the key is on the right hand side, where Cole Palmer will use his body orientation to block passing lanes a lot of the times. Newcastle, of course, will push a lot of men forward. But the trick with them is that they will not allow to play out on the back. Yes, Trippier will be high and wide in here, but they are going to go for a lot of the long ball. So you see Enzo Fernandez, Moise Caicedo in here in a lot of battles. Almost every long ball, every ball from Newcastle is played long. Almost every ball from them is whole flop long. Yes, there are times where they play out on the back, but consistently. Now, they are going to use Ishak as an outlet. Sometimes if Callum Wilson is there, he becomes an outlet for them. And then they would want to use the pace of Gordon and Almiron as triggers to run in those channels in here to hurt you in those areas if you are not quick on your feet, if you are not turned on in the game, if you are not matching their intensity and their aggression in the game. And it's going to begin from the blast of the whistle. From the blast of the whistle, you have to be as intense as them. You have to be as aggressive as them. You need to chase them down. If you don't, you're in trouble. But the disparity is that in a game like this, Chelsea necessarily don't need to be chasers. They don't need to stop them. Chelsea need to control the game state. And it's the reason why the 3-2-5 shape in the attack is going to be very important. Chelsea need to counter press and press them very quick. They need to be more proactive. They need to win the balls in these areas very well. But even before we go into that, without the ball, Newcastle essentially goes into a 4-5-1 in these areas, mid-block, where they make it very difficult to deal with them. It's like a mid-table team, of course. Eddie Howe came from a mid-table team. He knows how to play like that. And then he uses Almiron and then my man Anthony Gordon as the triggers to move up top, to move up the field of play. And then, of course, Ishak as a hold-up player. Now, Chelsea's biggest problem at the early part of the season was how to break down a mid-block, low block like that. And at that time, it was an issue of too much fluidity in a 3-1-6. Now, this time, there is much more control. There is much more fluid structure. They have fluid but in a structure, fluid rigidity. That's how Ange Postecoglou puts it. I love the man a lot. He puts it at fluid rigidity, and they need some form of fluid rigidity in a game like this, in a 3-2-5, in that area where you have Thiago Silva pushing up and my man and Marco Correa also getting in there almost to the halfway line. And this is going to be a defect to Chelsea's game, because you remember I mentioned in a video yesterday that I want Benoit Bellachile to be in this game because of pace. Now, if you push up like this, they have pace players. They have very, very very good runners, very, very good sprinters in their team, and they are going to make it very difficult for Chelsea to deal with the second balls when they go long in there, especially with the battles in there. But yes, this is how the structure is going to be like, and Chelsea need to occupy the half space. But this is the path. When Newcastle win the ball here in their area, now they would want to go long. Chelsea need to close them down quickly, very aggressive, very faster, very, very combative in there. They need to win those balls and then have sustained spells of pressure in the area of Newcastle United. Of course, Reece James's overlaps is going to be very important. The pulsar of Cole Palmer in here, when he pulses, Reece will either underlap or overlap in here. It's an integral part of how they can break them down. But essentially, I do think that whilst the nominal tactics is very important, the game is going to be about physicality, and how Chelsea are going to be aggressive enough in their physical state of this game, because they need to control it. You need to control the game with ball retention, a lot of ball retention. They need to control the game with a lot of sustained spells of pressure against Newcastle. They need to control the game with a lot of counter pressing in there against Newcastle. They need to be in their faces. They need to be front-footed. They need to take it to them. They need to stop them from that. And Newcastle are going to do a lot of shadow pressing when Chelsea are building up from the back, and that's why the rotations of Enzo are going to be very, very important. He needs to move. The rotations need to be almost perfect. If Kukurea is going out for Cole to come in, is he the right guy for that rotations in there? It's a big question. But then apart from that, these are things that you need generally to understand how the game state is going to look like in the game against Newcastle. Yeah, so these are the game is going to pan out. I think that Chelsea has a tendency to get a job done in this game. Our beats, the surest bet is that they're going to be more than a goal, so Nova 1.5. Yeah, guys, so thank you very much. My name is Fiifi-Manfred. I'm grateful that you tuned into the channel. This was my preview of Chelsea versus Newcastle. Bye.